was 1922. America was changing. Cities were alive with jazz music, secret speakeasies, and Model T cars rattling along dusty roads. But far from the bright lights of the city, deep in the quiet farmland of Lockwood County, something terrifying happened. One cold November morning, a farmer walked into his barn and discovered something that would haunt the town for generations. An entire family had been killed. No robbery, no witnesses, no clear motive, just a silent farmhouse and a mystery that would never be solved. Tonight, we open file number 004, the strange case of the Lockwood Farm murders. In the early 1920s, Lockwood County was the kind of place where everyone knew everyone. The roads were dirt, electricity had only recently arrived, and most families earned their living through farming. The Lockwood family owned one of the oldest farms in the county. A tall, wooden farmhouse stood at the edge of wide fields. A red barn sat nearby, and thick forests surrounded the property. The family consisted of 4 people. Thomas Lockwood, the father, was a quiet man who spent most of his days caring for livestock. His wife Margaret was known in town for her warm personality and the fresh bread she sold to neighbors. Their teenage son Daniel often helped his father in the fields, and their youngest daughter Emily spent most afternoons playing near the orchard behind the house. To neighbors, they seemed like a perfectly normal American farm family. But weeks before the murders, strange things began happening on the farm. Margaret Lockwood reportedly told a neighbor she had begun hearing footsteps in the attic late at night. At first, the family assumed it was animals. Old houses often made strange noises, but the footsteps kept coming, sometimes late at night, sometimes early in the morning. Slow, heavy steps moving across the ceiling above them. Then came another disturbing discovery. One morning, Thomas Lockwood found footprints in the dirt outside the barn. The prints led from the nearby forest toward the farmhouse, but they did not lead away. Despite the unsettling signs, life continued as usual. In nearby towns, the Roaring Twenties were in full swing. Hidden speakeasies served illegal whiskey behind barbershops. Jazz music filled crowded dance halls, and Model T automobiles rattled along country roads. But out at Lockwood Farm, someone may have already been there, watching, waiting. On the night of November 14th, 1922, neighbors reported hearing something unusual from the direction of the Lockwood property. A dog barking loudly, then suddenly going silent. The following morning, milk deliveries arrived as they always did. But no one answered the door at the Lockwood farmhouse. At first, this didn't seem unusual. Farmers were often busy early in the morning, but as the day went on, neighbors began to feel uneasy. A local farmer named Harold Dunn eventually decided to check on the family. When he approached the house, everything seemed strangely quiet. The front door was slightly open. Inside, chairs were knocked over and a lantern burned low on the kitchen table. But the house itself was empty. Harold then walked slowly toward the barn. What he discovered inside shocked the entire county. The Lockwood family had been murdered, all 4 of them. Authorities arrived soon after, but the investigation quickly became confusing. Nothing had been stolen. Money remained inside the house. Valuables were untouched. Someone had clearly entered the farm, but there was no sign of why. As investigators searched the property, several disturbing details began to emerge. The animals inside the barn had been fed after the murders. This meant someone had remained on the farm. Food in the kitchen had also been eaten. Bread had been sliced. Coffee cups were left on the table. Someone had stayed in the house, possibly for days. Even stranger, investigators discovered signs that someone had been living in the attic. Old blankets, food scraps, and cigarette ashes. Someone may have been hiding above the family for weeks, watching their routines, waiting for the perfect moment. To this day, several theories about the Lockwood Farm murders remain. The first theory suggests the killer was someone the family knew, perhaps a neighbor or someone who had worked nearby, someone familiar with the layout of the farm. The second theory involves a drifter. In the early 1920s, many travelers rode freight trains across the country looking for work. A stranger could have passed through the area unnoticed. The third theory is the most disturbing. Some investigators believe the killer may have been hiding in the attic long before the murders, watching the family, learning their habits, waiting for the right moment. Despite multiple investigations, no suspect was ever officially arrested. Over time, the Lockwood Farm murders slowly faded into local legend. The farmhouse eventually fell into ruin. The barn collapsed decades later, but the mystery remains. Who was hiding in the attic? Why did they stay on the farm after the murders? And why did they never take anything? More than a century later, the Lockwood case remains unsolved. Some locals still claim strange things happen near the old farm at night. Footsteps, whispers, lights moving through the trees. Maybe it's just stories. Or maybe something from that night never truly left. What do you think happened at Lockwood Farm? Leave your theory in the comments and subscribe to the 3 AM archive for more unsolved files. Because sometimes the past isn't finished with us yet.